Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Mondays with Mundy. That's me, yours truly, Jim Mundy, the historian for the Union League Legacy Foundation at the Union League of Philadelphia. We're heading into a presidential election this year, and with all kinds of issues about voter registration, voter suppression, and issues like that. Well, 150 years ago, voting was a very important issue indeed, because that was when the 15th Amendment was ratified and certified by Congress. So the story also involves a Philadelphia component, as you can imagine, and also the League. So let's get into our story, because I think it's a really interesting one. To do that, though, I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint. So if you'll permit me to go through those machinations, see what we can do here. I do that. Come on, guys. Let me hit slideshow. All right, from the beginning. Oh, there we go. All right, Triumph and Tragedy, the League, the 15th Amendment, the League, and Octavius V. Catto. All right, so the 15th Amendment was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives on February 25th of 1869, the Senate the next day, and on March the 1st of 1869, Nevada became the first state to ratify the amendment. And by February the 3rd of 1870, Iowa was the 28th state to do that out of 37 at that time. And with that, on March the 30th of 1870, the Secretary of State, Hamilton Fish, certified the results, and it became an official amendment to the Constitution of the United States. And you can see what it says here very simply. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. In other words, well, male citizens could vote, all right? It didn't get that specific, but at this point, black male citizens now have the right to vote, okay? Now, it wasn't easy. As you can imagine, there was a lot of opposition to it, and especially in Philadelphia, which was, as we've discussed in previous episodes, not exactly the city of brotherly love when it came to its African-American citizens. So in this piece from a newspaper at the time, we'll show you exactly just how contentious it was in Philadelphia. So the constitutional amendment, on the left-hand side, Geary is John White Geary, the governor of Pennsylvania, member of the League. Thaddeus Stevens, the great member of the House of Representatives from Pennsylvania, great abolitionist, gay advocates. John W. Forney, another League member. Housefort. Forney was a newspaper publisher, and he was previously the Secretary of the U.S. Senate during the Civil War. Alexander K. McClure was a newspaper publisher, Pennsylvania State Representative and Senator, soldier, member of the Union League as well, joined in March of 1863. McClure was speaking for it. Simon Cameron, the infamous senator from Pennsylvania, Lincoln's first Secretary of War, and a League member, wanted it. And as you can see, the League sustains it. So now we know where the League stands on the whole issue, don't we? All right. Not surprising given what we've heard in previous episodes. And on the right-hand side, here are the Pennsylvania state politicians who supported it. So Thaddeus Stevens, William Kelly, member of the League, Charles O'Neill, member of the League, Leonard Myers, member of the League, Jonathan Broomwall, a member of the League, Ulysses Mercure, member of the League, and John K. Moorhead, a member of the League. So 6 League members voted to support the passage of the 15th Amendment. So, and as you can see, it was in the bottom, a radical platform, Negro suffrage, the only issue. But we know that it passed. And to mark its passage, there was a great celebration in Philadelphia on April the 26th of 1870. And to play its part, League member John Gillingham Fell proposed that the League present a banner to the African-American community of Philadelphia during the celebrations on April the 26th to show its support. And the League did just that. The banner itself was 7 feet tall by 6 feet wide, made of white silk, heavily embroidered with all kinds of symbolic images. And as you can imagine, Abraham Lincoln, United States Colored Troops, soldiers, things like that. and I could go on and on. It would take me 15 minutes to describe it all. But on the front were these words in Latin. And I haven't spoken Latin since I was an older boy in the 1960s, so let's see what happens. There's civitatis equalis vis civitatis est, and it translates as, it is your right to want equal citizenship. And that tells you right there what the League is thinking, doesn't it? Okay. On the back of the banner, it said, presented to our colored citizens by the Union League of Philadelphia in commemoration of the ratification of the 15th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, April 26th of 1870. So there was a delegation of 12 of the most important African-American citizens in Philadelphia at the time who were welcomed into the League House. And in the north, what we call the North Parlor, the North Sitting Room today. And I have this image of the League up because you go up the front steps, go in the front door, and then turn to the right. The first room on the right is the North Parlor, the North Sitting Room. So you can see that there. It was in that room where this banner was presented by the League president at that time, Morton McMichael, to this delegation of African-American citizens who were headed by Octavius V. Catto at that time. On behalf of the League, Charles Gibbons gave the presentation speech. Gibbons was a founding member of the League and one of the most vociferous and vocal advocates for civil rights for blacks in Philadelphia, going back into the 1850s. I mean, just one of the best abolitionists in the city. All right, so when the ceremony was over, there was then a big parade in Philadelphia that started basically right on Broad Street in front of the League House. Went south, then east, then north, and then west, and would eventually end up at Horticulture Hall. And again, I mean, you just put yourselves in there and pretend you're an African-American citizen in Philadelphia in the 1860s, 1870s. Now you have the right to vote. You want to celebrate, and that's exactly what happened. So here's a ticket for that celebration. As you can see, it didn't begin until 10 o'clock at night. That's it. So that's Horticultural Hall, and that's what it looked like. It basically brought in Spruce Street. It was long gone, unfortunately. Okay, so everything's fine, is it? So the first municipal election, the first election in which Philadelphia's African-American citizens can vote, took place on October the 10th of 1871. And it very much involved this man, Octavius Valentine Catto. As you can see, Catto was born in 1839 in Charleston, South Carolina, to 3 black parents. Father was eventually a Presbyterian minister and would bring the family to Philadelphia, where he had a congregation. Catto, I think it would be fair to say, would become one of the great Renaissance men of 19th century Philadelphia. Right? He played at the Institute for Colored Youth at 915 Bainbridge Street. The building is still there. It was founded in 1839 by Quakers in Philadelphia to educate young black children because they weren't getting it in the Philadelphia school systems. All right. Catto would eventually become a teacher there and eventually the headmaster, if you will, of the boys' school at the Institute for Colored Youth. He was also an incredibly gifted athlete, baseball player and a cricket player, considered one of the best in the country in both sports. He was also a soldier during the Civil War. He served in the 5th Brigade of the Pennsylvania National Guard, and he would remain in that position in the National Guard until the day of his death, so in 1871. It would be hard. Now, Catto also was very much involved with the Union League during the Civil War itself in terms of its recruiting black soldiers to fight in the Union Army. Don't forget, in the previous episode, we heard about the League Military Committee and the Supervisory Committee for National Colored Troops. Catto was active in that. He was also very much involved with the rights of blacks to ride streetcars in the city of Philadelphia because they were not able to do that. And so Catto worked with a League member named Morton McMichael, who became mayor of Philadelphia in 1866, and the two of them worked together to get the bill passed through the state legislature that allowed the blacks to ride the streetcars. And McMichael would later become president of the Union League. And again, it was McMichael who, as we heard earlier, just presented the banner to Catto in 1871, or in 1870 in the League House. So Catto was, without doubt, the most prominent African-American citizen in Philadelphia in this time period. All right. Um, all right, let's move on. So it's October the 10th, 1871. Again, the first election in which blacks in Philadelphia can vote. And as you can imagine, as we know, it was a contentious issue. And Catto lived at 814 South Street. He was actually on duty that day as a member of the Pennsylvania National Guard, the brigade, though he was not in uniform. He was canvassing the neighborhood to make sure that blacks were getting to the polling stations safely, and that they were able to vote. He was accosted, as you can see, not too far away, actually basically almost in front of his house. He was accosted by two Irishmen, and it was a very Irish neighborhood at that point. It was a very mixed neighborhood, actually, if you will. And he was shot 3 times by a gentleman named Frank Kelly. Catto his body was then taken to the 5th District Police Headquarters where he would die. Right. Kelly would leave the city, would run away to Chicago, and was eventually brought back to Philadelphia in 1877. That long ago back, but he was acquitted of all charges of murder. So the city was going to hold a great mass meeting to just try and absorb what had happened that day, and especially Octavius Catto of all people. So this mass meeting took place at National Hall on Market Street between 12th and 13th. It was presided over by League member Henry C. Carey, because the meeting was supported by the League. The vice presidents of the committee itself were also League members. William Morris Meredith, Joseph Gilliam Fell, John W. Forney, George Boker. I mean, all the great figures in the League's history from that period were at that meeting itself. And there were 2 committees that ran that organization, actually, both of which were headed by Union League members, because what they were also doing at the same time was planning for Catto's funeral, which would take place on Monday, October the 16th. So the mass meeting took place on the Friday. October the 10th was a Tuesday. That Friday is when the mass meeting took place, right? The 13th, and then the following Monday on October the 16th is when Catto's funeral took place. His body lay in state at the 1st Regiment Armory at basically Broad and Callow Hill Streets, so it's North Broad. The viewing was from 8 until 10 in the morning, at which point, and the casket was in the center, draped with an American flag. Catto was in his uniform as a major in the Pennsylvania National Guard, and he had a military funeral, the military service. After the service, the funeral procession turned south on Broad Street all the way to Mount Lebanon Cemetery, which was then at 18th and Passyunk Cemetery in South Philadelphia. And that's where Catto was buried with military honors. And the pallbearers were all soldiers. So, now, Mount Lebanon Cemetery was eventually closed, and the bodies were reinterred at a cemetery called Eden Cemetery, E-D-E-N, in Collingdale, Delaware County, south of the city itself. And this is Catto's tombstone. He was indeed the forgotten hero because everybody forgot about him, okay? But not quite. In 2003, then City Councilman Jim Kenney discovered the story of Octavius Catto. And the result was that just 3 years later, in 2006, an Octavius V. Catto Memorial Fund was created, and their goal was to create some kind of a bronze statue in honor of Octavius V. Catto. There was no public statue or memorial to a black citizen yet in Philadelphia. Right? This memorial fund was chaired by 2 Union League members. On the left, on the center, Carol Lawrence, and then on the right, past League president James Straw, and at that point, Jim Straw was also the president of the Abraham Lincoln Foundation. And in 2007, the Abraham Lincoln Foundation would make the first contribution to this O.V. Catto Memorial Fund that would eventually pay for and erect the first sculpture to an African American citizen in Philadelphia. And on the left-hand side of this photograph, you see Brantley Cadet, and he was the sculptor who was chosen to create the sculpture. And this is what it looks like. This was it being installed on the southwest apron of City Hall. Okay. And this is what it looked like on the day that it was dedicated, September 26th of 2017. So that is, it was the first and to this point the only public memorial to a Black citizen in Philadelphia. And it goes to show how history repeats itself. So much the way that the Union League was involved, very much involved in the African American community in Philadelphia and supporting it in the 19th century. So was it here 100 and, 100 years later, still supportive of that community and its representation in Philadelphia. So let me close with an announcement about the current exhibit at the Union League. It's called Ballot Box, America's Fight for the Vote. It is open to the public on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons from 3 to 6. You come in off of Broad Street. Only 5 people at a time must wear face masks because we are, as you can imagine, complying with all of the COVID protocols that we have right now. So I would encourage anybody to come in and see it. I think you really, really, I think, enjoy it. It's a wonderful exhibit itself. So thank you all once again for listening. I hope not too painfully, to another episode of Mondays with Mundy. So there's some interesting histories in there still to learn about the League and Philadelphia. So thank you for joining us. Thanks to the Legacy Foundation for supporting this video series as we go through this year under the pandemic. And we'll do some more programming on presidential elections in the next few weeks leading up to the actual election. It's a vote on November the 3rd. So, but hopefully some fun stuff in between. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for your faithful attendance, so to speak, and we hope to see you again next week. So in between, everybody, take care, stay well, and stay safe. Bye now.